Today, we're going to spend the next hour kind of exploring some of the residual impacts that this pandemic has had on our industry and what our very impressive operator panelists are doing to kind of mitigate some of those issues. And then we had you guys in the audience submit questions. So everything that we're going to be talking about today are things that either suppliers submitted or our other operators in the room submitted to talk about. So before we get started, I will introduce the panel, and I don't want to mess any of this up, so I'll probably read a little bit on these. First up is Devin Burns. He is the Vice President of Rooms and Food and Beverage for Omni Hotels and Resorts. Devin joined Omni in 2012 as Director of Food and Beverage for the Dallas Hotel. He was running that operation for 2 years and then served as the hotel's Director of Rooms. From there, he went on to the Omni La Costa Resort and Spa, which many of you may know for the Vibe Conference. Outstanding property, and he was promoted in 2016 to General Manager of the Omni in Dallas. And he is originally from Boise, Idaho.
Yes.
And went to the Washington State University, majoring in hotel and restaurant management. And before joining the Omni team, he served as the events director for Houston's own Hotel Derrick, which is just across the street from us.
Way back. That's a long time ago. I can't remember that. Yeah.
And he also worked for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and W Hotels in New York. This is Cindy Busey, to Devin's left. She is the Senior Director of Beverage for Darden Restaurants. Cindy has been with Darden since August of 2017. Her primary responsibility is covering off on all of beverage for all of the concepts, and the list of responsibilities is long and robust. And then we've got James Kramer. Hi, James.
Where'd you dig up information on me?
I know people. So James Kramer, Vice President of Beverage Operations for Landry's, which encompasses not just Landry's restaurants, but also the Houston Rockets and the Golden Nugget organization. He started his career with Landry's in 1992 as a bartender in Kemah, Texas, as probably many of us did as well. And from there, in the last 30 years, he has amassed a robust team and has been with Landry's on their journey to conquer the world and take over such concepts as Mastro's, The Palm, Del Frisco's, Brick House, Chart House, Joe's Crab Shack, Bubba Gump's, Morton's Steakhouse, The Palm. Am I missing anybody? Golden Nugget, just to name a few. So, and finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our dear friend Becky Boyd. She was supposed to be here with us today, unfortunately had a last-minute change of plans, so we wish her well, and hopefully we'll see her again soon. Real quick housekeeping before we dive into the questions. We are recording today, so all of you will be able to share this with your colleagues after the event. Okay, first up. You ready?
I think so.
Okay,
Be gentle.
Okay, this one's a big one, and it has a lot of components, and we could probably spend the entire hour on just this. But this one's going to go to Devin and Patrick. And with many retailers reducing their offerings, predominantly shifting to contactless QR code menus, what does this look like moving forward for you? Are you going back to expanded content, or are you keeping it tight? And how are out-of-stock issues hindering this for you? Devin?
Great question. So, the silver lining of COVID, I think we're learning, we're still figuring out what works best, and it's not across the brand, it's location specific in certain regards, but QR code for us are here to stay for now, right? Everything's still for now, I think, and we're still evaluating, but QR codes still have a place for sure. We're getting back to printed menus as much as possible. Our guests want that, but some guests still want QR codes, so we have both going on. So we'll have printed menus with the QR code on the printed menu, even though that seems kind of ironic, but you have both and you offer both, and that's easy to do. So the support need is there for sure. And then it's the digital with the QR code. It's how do we design that better? What's available on the QR code? How can we get creative with that? What's the drill down, and what's the platform look like? So, it's QR code really for a static menu, for a single a single restaurant, one of our hotels makes sense, but then it's a QR code for the entire hotel when you check in, and it lists all the activities going on at the resort, for example, has all of the restaurant menus, the hours of operation, and then we can drill down from there too and really make it dynamic. So long story short, or short to the long, is QR codes are here to stay, but printed menus are definitely coming back. Opening our Boston hotel in 30 days as an example, and we're spending a lot of money on menu covers, check presenters, and printed menus. So going back that direction, and of course we have the unknown of, we'll talk about that I'm sure throughout the panel, but the unknown of what's going on with COVID again and the new strain and all of those things. But we're moving forward and offering both for sure. And then to the question on offerings, we're expanding offerings for sure, but we're still mindful of out of stocks and how those may impact, and also just inventories and business volumes. We have a big fluctuation right now. It's hard, it's probably the most difficult time in our business in the history that I've worked for Omni as far as I can remember, that forecasting is such a conundrum for us right now. And that's, again, location specific. Resorts are doing extremely well with leisure travelers and vacation travelers. But does that change in the fall with school opening back up? Absolutely. But weekends are still probably strong. And then as corporate travel starts to kick back in, which is what we're really waiting on for our success, it's what does that look like? And then can we get some small meetings booked and groups like this in our hotels, which is absolutely wonderful for us to see on the horizon, and looking at that for hopefully Q4 and Q1 of next year.
Great.
So, yeah.
What about you, Patrick?
I love how all the tables right now are just so free of clutter. I mean, there's you don't have table caddies anymore. You have less pages in your beverage menu, you have less inserts. It's just this very clean environment right now. And I think what's happened is, and I totally agree, QR codes are here to stay. So we've had sort of this de-evolution where everything has just disappeared off the tables now, and we're slowly bringing things back. And I think it's very helpful right now, because without all this information to wade through, it makes the decision process for the guest very quick. And also from a labor standpoint, we're getting really good at the fewer options that we have. And then we're starting to supplement a lot more of and growing back our beverage menu, and even our food items too, with the QR code digital menu. And as printing is coming back, what we're seeing is how does the digital menu supplement or even add to by providing more information to what's not quite available on a limited print scale. What's interesting is all of our print costs have shifted to developmental costs. So we're investing a lot in the technology and the information, photography, video, all kinds of stuff that we're integrating into this, and people seem to be very comfortable with it. They know their phones are with them all day long, so it's just one extra step to pick up your phone and figure out what you're doing to order and for food and beverage. So we're very bullish on it, and we're just trying to make the experience for the guest as seamless as possible when they come into the restaurant and make their decisions very quickly.
So with the emergence of the more dynamic content, is there a need for the supplier partners to help engage with that additional photography or the additional video? And if so, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems that when you get into the digital space, the opportunities are boundless, and the biggest challenge that we're facing right now is trying to get the IT team and the training team talking to the marketing team. And we would love to see not only our guests be able to look at a beverage menu and look at the photography, because right now on a print menu you usually, I work with all of you all the time to figure out what weeks or what months that we're going to have your cocktail featured, and then you rotate it out and we bring another one in for the next quarter or the next few months. But we'd love to see every picture of every drink that we have listed in the digital menu so that people can make better informed decisions and have broader descriptions as well. And then really, for those that we really want to feature or highlight, expand upon that, do some interactive, not interactive, but do some videos or do some, some more engaging content. And then to pull in more of the IT and the operational components, we'd love to take our digital menu and incorporate things like pay at the table, place your order at the table. Right now, those work streams are happening. This is Applebee's, but it's happening sort of independently. And if we can bring it together, I think we make a really tight experience for our guests in the restaurants.
Great, thank you. Cindy, so let's talk about innovation a little bit. So how's your innovation pipeline changed in the last year and a half? And are you guys getting back to LTOs? Are you getting back to happy hours? What do promotions look like for you guys now and into the next year or so?
Yeah, great question. Wow, we spent really the last 18 months diving in on a food and beverage component and looking at all facets of our business. Darden, we have 8 different concepts that we play with, from very casual with Olive Garden all the way up to our ultra premium, which would be like an Eddie V's concept. And what we learned through really the pandemic is we're doing more with less. And really kind of honing in that strategy that our guests are looking for on a daily basis. It gave us the opportunity to really kind of play outside of our space. So a lot of times we had guardrails that we didn't want to do anything new. We didn't want to get into something that's experiential, something that took more time for either the bartender or the server to do at the table. But what we learned is the guests want that. And we have a new permission slip in life right now, and we're taking advantage of that, which is a lot of fun. We haven't done any LTOs just yet. We're trying to, what we call remove friction from our operators, and knowing that the challenge that we all face of staffing, managers are working just countless hours. Yeah, we'll get there, I'm sure. But you know, we're really trying to make sure that we're doing best by our operators. So as we're looking into the pipeline for LTOs, for us, it's really more going into 2022 is kind of what we're focusing on. So we're just really ramping back up. A lot of our guests are new guests coming to us for the first time, so they didn't know our menus before. So we're taking a little bit of advantage of that, and also taking this time too to retrain our teams. So a lot of times, you know, drinks as we develop them, of course we get in a very sterile environment, are absolutely perfect, right? And then if we go out into the restaurants, they slowly get changed. So we're taking the opportunity, rather than doing something new, is refreshing what we're currently doing today and just doing it better.
Great. Does anybody want to add to that?
Well said. Great job.
You covered it. You got it all.
All right, James. Shifting gears a little bit. So this one was presented by one of the operators in the audience today, and being closed for so many months hit everyone so hard, to say the least. And then when things did open back up, there's a whole host of new problems. And this one was predominantly related to challenges around staffing. How are you handling the pent-up consumer demand to be in restaurant or in dining, coupled with the ongoing labor shortages? And what are you doing to attract qualified candidates and keep existing team members?
Well, good question, and we're no different than anybody else and everybody in this room. I mean, the labor is an issue, and you know, to Cindy's point, we're trying to do everything we can to reduce resistance and relieve them of all these things that are coming their way. I think if you've been in a restaurant, you've been a manager before, you can imagine what it's like without this whole COVID thing, the issues that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then you add what we're dealing with COVID, it's just another whole universe. And so what we're trying to do is work and find ways to help them, make them feel that they don't have all these extra pressure points. As a department and as a group, you know, there's things that we can do and as an industry can do to help that. And one of the things that is a frustrating point is the distributors not getting us the products when they need to get. And that may sound, okay, we're all dealing with that, whether in this beverage industry, you're in the automotive industry, whatever, but that scenario puts a very difficult situation in management, and it trickles down. Bartenders can't make the cocktails. Servers go to the table, try to sell something, then they got to go back to the guests. Then we're slowing down table turns because we're having to go back to the bar, reorder, find out what we have. So I know that question was asked, and I think it's important that I try to tell you, as a group, we've got to get better about that communication from that distributor to the restaurant manager. And it starts with the suppliers in this room as well, and making sure that they know what the distributors are telling us. And so I thought it would be important. I actually have 2 hard examples that I want to share with the group, because being the woke individual that I am, I'm not going to pick on one particular distributor. But I got 2 of them here because if they're telling this to us, they know what the responses are going to be. I can only imagine what they're doing to other accounts out there. And I'm going to read 2 examples that have happened within the last 30 days, and I'll let you all decide. In no particular order. And again, I'm not going to call out the distributor, but they are the number 1 and 2 distributor across the country. One on the east side and one on the west side. And apologize, COVID has shot my eyes too, so I got to read glasses now. So, Marco, our rep, called me, and this is communication that goes directly from a distributor to our manager of a restaurant, a multi-million-dollar restaurant. Marco, our rep, called me the afternoon to inform me that our shipments would be again delayed. This was actually a communication that came on a Wednesday. An order that was placed Monday the 19th, which was a week before, may not get entered for delivery until sometime next week. He also stated that this was a directive from a senior vice president within the wine and spirit side. Senior manager. Marco said that due to lack of drivers, deliveries, everything else, taking up to 2 weeks. At the end of the chat, he said the best scenario is that if they were given the green light, we might be able to get the product for pickup on a Friday. This was an order from a week prior, multi-million-dollar restaurant. We get it a week and a half later. This one's even better. 4th of July weekend, coastal Florida, busy time for 4th of July restaurants. On a Friday morning, one of our restaurants receives this from a distributor. Unfortunately, the restaurant order for today did not get routed due to staff levels combined with the holiday weekend volume. Their warehouse had to hold back a number of deliveries. I guess we were one of the lucky ones that got held back. I spoke with Jack. He and his team contacted the local market for any solution for Landry's to receive the delivery. The division manager of operations stated that it would not be possible for the local team to take this order. Sales and customer pickup volume is so high, pickups were cut off at 8:30 in the morning. So what are we supposed to do? Right there, a manager that's trying to get through the weekend and now has another scenario. So I really would like this group to try to really get engaged with communication. I know you can't bring us good information all the time. It is what it is. But if we work on trying to resolve the situation, and in both cases, we were able to resolve those because I can assure you we got the right people on the phone. So I know this can be worked through. It's just we're allowing people to communicate and send stuff out. And I think it's just because there's a lot of new people out there too. They don't understand. But really, since y'all asked that question, it would really help us if we could work on that moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you. I wasn't going to give him the out-of-stock question. He figured out a way to work it in. So, Devin, labor shortages. What are you doing to encourage your team members to ensure that the guest experience remains whole when they're stretched so thin?
Yeah, no, great question. It's not really about what they can do, right? It's about what we can do as the company, as the programming, right, with our partners to make it, I think we've said it in a couple different ways, to make it as easy as possible for our associates to deliver great hospitality. And that's not easy. It's never been easy. It's definitely more challenging now with staffing shortages, with some out-of-stock challenges for sure, all of those curveballs that we're all dealing with. So how can we get ahead of it as much as possible? How can we equip our team with the right training, with the right support? They're all wearing multiple hats. You know, we have managers who are managing and bartending. We have, supervisors who are back in the dish pit when they need to be. We have chefs who are cooks. So it's across the board, and everybody, to your point, can't say it loud enough, everybody is super stretched. So how can we collectively as a group make it easier? So that's up to us to figure out what's the puzzle, what's open when, what's going to be the most meaningful to the guest, where can we make the most revenue and drive profit without stretching our teams extra, like they're already stretched. So we have to be selective on our offerings. First of all, our hours of operation have to make sense. Taking things for granted, which was pre-pandemic, we took a lot for granted, and we took a lot for granted from rates of pay. Looking in the mirror and transparently, I think you'd ask anybody in the industry, we had a pay problem. we had a compensation problem. We still do in certain respects, but to give our team members and our associates a great or a good standard of living, we've really had to look in the mirror and go, okay, and being, again, transparent, housekeepers making $12 an hour isn't enough, doesn't make sense. Cooks making, $11 for a cook one or, starting cook doesn't make sense. So what does that look like? And where's the balance to that, right? And then how can we get some work-life balance? How can we incentivize our team members? What training, development? We just, as an example, implemented or created an intern program over the summer. So to recruit college students to us, and again, a lot of college students in hospitality, I can't imagine however long ago it was when I was in the hospitality program in Washington State, I would have looked probably at this industry and got, no thanks, I'm going, what's next? Or what's another option? Because that looks like really hard work. I don't know if that restaurant or that hotel is going to stay open. I don't know, maybe I still would have done it because I'm a little crazy. And it is amazing work and, to be in service, but it's really how do we create something that's attractive, right, for that next generation workforce. So we created an intern program, and we put in their curriculum that kind of adds to their education, a mentor program. At the end of the intern program this summer, they're guaranteed placement in our manager and training program. So how do we expedite that process and how do we make it easy for people to want to be in hospitality and stay in hospitality? So I don't know if I answered the question. It's a lot of things. It's a big puzzle. I think for this group, I think the thing I'd end on is what can we do together to make it easier on our team? We talk about LTOs. Yeah, we're hesitant on those too. And if we are going to do something, it needs to be turnkey.
Right.
So what can you do with us here's something easy. We did a great sangria promotion over the summer. We started at midsummer, and it was a great success because it was turnkey. It was all ready to go. The kit to the hotel, to the pool operators, and boom, it was a great product for the guest. So what's more of that? How can we incentivize? How can you help us incentivize our team members for selling and for operating, and what does that look like? So we need to put our heads together on that for sure.
So one of the operators submitted a question around compensation and kind of extra things that people are doing now. We've seen sign-on bonuses. We've seen offering to pay for daycare or pay for school. Have you guys added anything to your current programs in that way to attract those frontline team members?
Well,
Go ahead.
no, go. We changed our pay scales. Every year we announced back in December of last year that it's going up $1 every single year. But to your point, Michelle, I mean, when you can go out of the hospitality arena and make $15, $18 an hour, and you're not working till 2 in the morning, hospitality's not that attractive anymore. It's hard to get good work. We hope on tips like that. Guests are being very generous. And we are seeing that. But it's definitely a challenging market. I don't think we're really doing anything different than most. We try to pay fair no matter what.
Yeah. I'd say besides compensation, which again, we're evaluating every single position, every single market, and what makes sense. And we have some hotels or locations remain nameless where we've taken housekeeping rates up to $20 an hour just because we've had to. We have to clean rooms, right? Mm-hmm. So, but besides that, and that's a piece of it, it's how can we make that shift or that work week more flexible? So rather than 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and it's 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. or it's 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. Can we bring people in for 4 hours or 5 hours, and they can get back to childcare, get back to their personal obligations, and it's up to us to restructure the schedule and make sure it makes sense versus them having to restructure their life to make sense for what we need.
Yeah. So you mean I wouldn't have to work 11 to 11?
No, unless you want to. But we're happy to have you if you want to.
I was queen of the swing shifts. Patrick, so last year we talked a lot about alcohol beverage to go, and as we all kind of predicted, that genie is not going back in the bottle. Many states have already adopted the legislation. There's a lot of other states who are that have it on the docket to make that permanent. So that lends the question now, realizing that people in your building are going to get you more. You'll be able to sell them more. But what does that look like for to-go moving forward? And is that going to continue to still be a focus for you guys? And if so, in what ways, and how much emphasis will you put on that part of your business?
Yeah. We're really happy with what we've seen with our alcohol to go. Just the fact that we put it out on our to-go menus and made it available online. We just saw an instant take rate, especially in our cocktails to go. Those have been performing really well. So I'd say it's doing really well to the point where it's growing. And when anything is growing in our environment right now, we will focus on it. Now it's, we're I think like many of us in the room, we're still sort of small staff, so the prioritization isn't probably as high as some of the other activities, but we will continue to work on it in bits and pieces. I think there's a couple of challenges we have. First of all, there's unevenness between cocktails, wine, and beer. We're having lots of success with cocktails, and there's numerous reasons that we could list out why that is. I think in the on-premise selling to off-premise environment, we've got to look at ways to be more competitive with beer and wine to make that more attractive to the guests. The two biggest ones are the pricing power, which we just don't have, and the inventory management. So that's a lot of SKUs and a lot of different varieties that we need to keep in a tight space in the back of the house. So when we make our decisions on what we want to sell to go, it's got to be very focused, very dialed in, and that probably requires some trial and error, some consumer research, maybe some unique or interesting packaging, SKUs that you can only find on premise that you actually sell off premise, stuff like that. So I think there's part of that. There's some challenges that I think that are controllable for us. More education with our team members, encouraging them to suggestively sell, giving them more point of sale or reminders to suggest that, creating more opportunities within the to-go ordering space that just makes it top of mind. So after you go through your order, have a pop-up, would you care for a six-pack of beer, a bottle of wine? So there's some things that we can do. Some other things where we really need some help with is, first of all, I think you just mentioned it, the fragmentation of the laws state by state makes it very difficult for us to put any focus on something centralized. So it's a lot of work to just make one state or one nuance work. So, and I might be generalizing here, but I think on the supplier side, the public or the political affairs teams are much more robust and would love to have those conversations and figure out how to best engage. Because I've talked to a lot of our restaurant operators, and they are going and knocking on the doors of their state Congress people, and they are talking to the alcohol officials, and they're asking them to push for ways to help them open some things up. I'm in Minnesota. They can sell beer and wine to go, and they can't sell cocktails, and they see all their other neighboring restaurants having a lot of success with it in other states. But I can't, it's hard for me to have those conversations. I'd love to. And maybe it's one of those things where we have to chip away at it. And then, then the pricing and the inventory, there's all these, when you look at it, it seems very daunting. So I think the best thing that we need to do now is just focus on the things that are individual challenges and chip away at them. So, but
what about purchase intent? How has that shifted, or has it? Are the guests looking for familiarity? Are they looking for that value? Is it just to eliminate them having to make one more stop at the grocery store or the liquor store? Have you been able to dial in on what's kind of driving the purchase and where they're gravitating?
Yeah, so we've done some research. We've asked some consumers what are they most interested in. So we're not surprised that they want to order our signature cocktails, and I think that's an advantage that we all, as competitors, uniquely have. So we all have our different cocktails that we sell to go, and the things that are most successful are the things that are probably the most pain in the ass to make at home.
The stuff they can't do at home.
Yeah, I've seen who's got all this stuff in the pantry to make a Bahama Mama. It's like, and you can't even buy pineapple juice right now. I don't know if you ever looked in the grocery store shelves, but you got to buy the big old liter right now. So that's what we're having, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So things like blue curacao, pineapple juice, strawberry puree. You just don't have those things at home. So when you can offer those drinks with big colors and a great value, unique to your own brand, they sell really well. And so that's where, if we're even going a little more granular, we're putting most of our focus on our cocktails. But I'm personally uncomfortable with the unevenness. I want all alcohol to thrive, to go. So
So James, what about you guys? You guys went all in on to-go. You did virtual experiences, you were doing bundles, you were doing all kinds of stuff. Have you kind of tapered that back now that the restaurants are back open, or are you still full force
We
on
have,
to-go?
you know, and again, part of it is just trying to make it easier on the management as well, because when we were doing it for survival mode, that was a whole different mindset, and it was get out and do whatever you can. And I mean, we were selling wine out of our wine cellars to make payroll. I mean, luckily we had a lot of wine invested across the country, and we had people that wanted to stay home and drink some very nice wines, and so we were able to sell them. That's a different mindset than where we're at today. The laws are still a problem, and we've come a long way. I think last year I made a comparison to being the Wild West out there, and it got better. Several states did adopt some more permanent legislation, and that makes it easier, but for us even, it's difficult to come up with a national program where we can't, especially if I take spirits, which was just mentioned a bit ago here, you can't do the same program everywhere. So if you got to complicate this thing and write it by state to be compliant with those state regulations, then you're writing one program multiple times. And then trying to get that executed consistently is difficult. And so we got a long way to go, I think, in that regards. And then, you know, from a messaging standpoint to the consumer, when we were operating under these temporary guidances that allowed us to do it, we had some of them that rolled back abruptly. It was just like, you got to stop tomorrow at midnight and no more alcohol to be served. And so now you got people that were like, well, we could buy it here, now we can't. So I think it's going to take a while. I do think there's some traction out there in certain parts of the country within certain concepts of ours. It's not something that resonates with all of our concepts. We do have a group of individuals now that work on specifically the off-premise delivery, food and beverage, and we work with them, and so we're throwing some ideas at them, looking at some innovation. So from a supplier in the room, unique packaging, absolutely. Things that we can offer that we can compete against. We can't compete offering Bud Light with what's out there in the off-premise. We just can't. But, you know, there are some things with the signature cocktails. Wine bundling, we've been successful using some of our wine programs and bundling them with packaging. And so we'll continue to look at it, but it's really kind of putting it into the queue and giving other priorities first.
Great. So now we get to the out-of-stock question, but James, you can't answer.
I won't say a word.
Okay. You can chime in at the end.
jump
This
in.
one's going to Cindy. So we all know that there's the out-of-stock issues. What does this mean for your existing mandates, and does this present an opportunity for new products, new SKUs, new partners to help fill some of those voids for you? And if so, what's the best way for newer or emerging supplier partners to get in front of you with what they have to show?
First off, I would say if you have inventory, come see all of us. That's step one. It's really navigating the waters these days. So to the point that as we shut down 18 months ago and started to revamp, we really took a look at our cocktail menu and number one, what products were available, and rewrote a lot of our list strategically by that. We have the luxury, we talked about it before, Devin did, as far as like QR codes. That luxury has been a benefit for us of quickly navigating and able to change when we can't get a product. So if I look at, you know, the wine list, and champagne is painful these days, we're quickly able to take that off because it's the pain pressure not only on our managers, but to the guests as well, because they do see it in retail and they want it in our restaurants. So, you know, we're being very nimble on that. For new partners, as I stated before, we're trying not to add a lot of friction to our managers, so introducing things new is a little bit of a challenge, but we're up for it. Again, it's all about having stock and resources, and the training piece comes into it. So as we are low on our team members and managers, we've got to, as we're putting new products out there, we have to have a good reason why we want to do it. We're very much so in a controlled environment when we're in our offices, so we come up with all kinds of great ideas. There's new cocktails being innovated every single day, probably by all four of us. But when we think about it and putting them out into restaurants, there's a lot of change. But as we watch, Devin mentioned before, we watch forecasting. I'm planning already right now through January of next year. So as I'm writing the list, I'm reaching out to all of you and confirming and making you tell me 100% that you have product. We're also being very nimble, though, also on our menu, so we might just list bourbon. And, you know, if we can't get a specific brand, the next best one will be there. I think tequila has been playing in that game, you know, for the better part of 18 months of silver tequila we just can't get. Ultra premium's really, really hard. So we're rewriting menus quite a bit. But again, for new partners, our doors are open. You know, we love innovation. We like things new. Our guests want to try things new. There's new products coming into the market all the time. I think we're just a little bit slow of wanting to make a lot of changes right now.
How does that look for the rest of you? Patrick, you want to go?
I guess we're innovating by accident in some of the ways right now. We've had some calls where we've ran out of one cordial in a sangria, and you know, it's a Friday afternoon, and I got the restaurants calling, and you know, who's got time to work on it? So it's just like, just throw peach schnapps in it. Sounds good. How was it? It's great. It tastes great. So we're just, you know, if you put orange juice and grenadine and rum in it and whatever else, it's going to taste pretty good. So, you know, so we've run out of blue curacao. So we've been trying to craft like what green and red thing can put, like, so it's been really fun. And we've been joking about it. So what's happening is when we see these out of stocks happening, Nate Grover, I work with as well. He's right over there. Yeah. Hi, Nate. Nate made it this morning. That's awesome. Great. We've just been, and you know, with the whole labor and time and resources. I mean, it's Nate. I'm picking up the phone and talking to Nate and say, hey, what do you like? We're not going in. We're not making the drink. We're just using the best to our knowledge and saying, hey, just swap this ingredient out. And for the most part, the restaurants have been really good about it. It was very chaotic to begin with. It was pins and needles. We're out of stock. This is nuts. You guys got to do a better job. Now, this is probably not a great thing, but there's still probably a little complacency sitting in. I mean, because it's, you know, it's the proteins, it's the, you know, it's the juices, it's the ingredients to the sauces. I mean, you name it. I mean, so it's impacting everything. So I think the restaurants are starting to figure out. It's like, hey, we're just going to have to get creative on our own here, because there isn't a document that I'm going to go look at right now that's going to tell me what to do. And so we're trying to mitigate it as quickly as possible and get those restocks to happen. And I think the mentality that we've kind of shifted to is looking into the pantry of what we absolutely know we have, and we're just building drinks and beverages based on what we know we have. Probably not a healthy thing long term, but it's working right now.
Yeah. James?
You're going to let me say something about out of stock?
Yes. No. About new opportunities for suppliers.
Oh, new opportunity. Okay.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. We're constantly meeting with up-and-coming brands. You know, the dynamic has changed a lot, and I would advise anybody that maybe is a startup, make certain that you feel confident in your distribution plan and your supply chain before you even come up and try to talk, because there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of new tequilas that are hitting the market, which is a good thing. For us, we need it, because we need things to backfill some of these brands that continue to seem to struggle. And the category itself continues to grow and develop and become more complex. I was having a conversation with Keith Goldston, our master sommelier in the back, the other day. We're almost to the point with some of our concepts, we might be writing tequila lists like wine lists, because there's so much. There are good tequilas, they're just stylistically different, which is exciting, because that allows us to play in a whole different arena that we haven't in the past. So I have had, probably in the last 2 weeks, 3 or 4 different brand new suppliers come in, and we talk through where they're at and what we're looking at. But we're looking into 2022. There's nothing that's going to happen overnight. It's too difficult right now to just all throw the switch and try to get a new supplier introduced, get the product trained up, and then, most importantly, make sure the distributor has enough forecasting on the floor. And so, especially going into O&D, because I'm very concerned of what's going to happen in O&D. We're seeing some very thin products now, and you know, retail is not slowing down. So it's a great opportunity to be in a startup company, to be a new supplier. We are definitely looking for more to come into the fold. Just make sure you feel very solid about your distribution, your products, and not even just, and nowadays we can't even just talk about the juice itself. It's got to be about the labels, the caps, and everything else that goes along with it, because we know there's shortages and all that stuff.
Great. Devin, is that same for you?
Yeah, no, I think repeat, echo. The only thing I'd add to that, right, is we're not going to add a lot of additional content or a lot of additional variety than what we already have, and that's going to be focused and then continue to be managed, so it makes sense. But so to the point of, yes, it needs to be in stock and needs to be there for us, but also what innovation, again, and what ideas do you have to help us make it easier, right? So easy for us is brand wide, and that's all of our hotels, and if we can have placements that cover that, and if it's singular hotels or if it's state specific where we don't have distribution brand wide or across the country, then it needs to be, again, turnkey for those operators, and it's going to be a direct connect between you and the director of food and beverage, the director of ops for those hotels, and that's okay too, but we just need to make sure that the communication is there and that the work is there and that you're willing to have that skin in the game. If you want to be on the list, there's work to do and there's support for sure. So that doesn't change. But I think, like we're all saying, it's even more important now that everybody in our program is sharp and thoughtful about what you're offering, and time is precious for all of us, and that it makes sense.
Yeah, curated, custom curated for you.
Absolutely.
And your concepts. Great. We have a few minutes if anybody would like to ask a question. I think, where's Donna? Donna, do you want to come around with, I have a microphone here, you've got one. Donna's going to come around if anybody would like to ask any questions.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
But it's for those of us who are selling you wine. There's been so much research from like everybody from Data Essential to RNDC, and there's Scarborough stuff. Thank you, RNDC, for that. That has shown guests really respond well to wine when you put some kind of descriptor, to describe the taste, flavor profile, like you do with the cocktails or special tequilas or anything like that. So I'm wondering, with the new, possible digital menus through QR codes or whatnot, is that something that you'll consider adding in, more wine descriptors?
We have on a digital platform, so we are partnering with Ziosk right now in many of our restaurants and taking advantage of pictures, which I know Patrick mentioned is super important, but then giving us the ability to have more menu space. I think the biggest challenge that we have is just copy right now. So in order to add more descriptors to wine, we need to get larger lists or have multiple pages, get back to our big captain's books. But we're just trying to play in that digital space and giving more information there and being less so on the actual menu that is either in the guest hands or on the QR code, but really challenging them to kind of do deep dives. It also gives us a chance to capture more information from what they're looking for. So are they navigating just through reds? Are they looking at whites? Which varietal? And it helps us kind of really rewrite the list too.
Anybody else have a question?
I just wanted to see, James has kind of been hee-hawing around about out of stock. How do you really feel about it?
Really want my opinion.
Apparently,
I need an hour.
I missed last year. Was it very exciting with this one?
A lot of fireworks.
A lot of fireworks. All right.
We almost didn't get invited back.
Hi, I had a question about the labor shortage. Funny enough, my college son is working at Del Frisco's Grill, making crazy money. So thank you very much. But has any thought been given, cooks, dishwashers, hostesses, for the restaurateurs? Everybody in the restaurant is involved in some way, shape, or form in the guest experience. Has any thought been given to more of a broadly based tip sharing program to enhance the compensation throughout the restaurant as opposed to just the front of the house team?
Yeah, for us, yes, and we're not there yet, but absolutely evaluating and spitballing all kinds of ideas around that. So you're absolutely spot on. We've got to do something different, but it's some location specific, where we have union staffing, where there's a different construct to that and what that potentially needs to look like. But yeah, tip sharing even to the culinary, to the cooks. I know Danny Meyer's restaurant group has done that, and I think some experimental, and I don't know what's exactly stuck for some restaurant groups, but the need is there, I would say, for sure. But also it's up to us as the operator to kick in some of that extra pay as well. And that's, again, looking in the mirror and being transparent. It's not up to the consumer to compensate in full, I think, our employees. It needs to be a great value proposition for our guests as well. And we got to be okay with what does that profit margin look like, and then what does that staffing level look like, and again, that's concept specific as well. So short to the long, yes, we're looking at it.
There was a question, I think. Yeah.
I'm curious, more probably anecdotally, but as we see some consumers shifting to the CBD and cannabis space, and that's becoming legal in more and more states, is that something that you guys think will eventually come into the beverage space, and or concepts we'll be planning around how to incorporate those into offerings in the restaurants? I know that's probably way out, but I'm curious if that's something you guys are already thinking about or having conversations about.
Would love to try it, yes. Not personally, well, I mean, I will.
Personally.
Everything that goes in the restaurant has to pass these taste buds first. But no, you can't escape the growth and the conversation and the opening of the legalities. So we have had lots of conversations about what we can do with CBD, both from a culinary and a beverage front. We've engaged with some suppliers and talked to them. I think again, more anecdotally, the scale up, the manufacturing, the type of packaging that we would need right now isn't exactly conducive to what's being offered right now. And if we get to that space where it works with how we want to apply it, we would like to apply some fairly rigorous testing to get some consumer feedback and work on it. But I think it's one of those things among a handful of things that we should really keep our eye on in the next couple of years.
And additionally to that, we've had conversations as well, not only on the beverage side, but from spa products and other things that we're looking at. If we talk about the alcohol laws and how fragmented that is, it's a really big problem with that industry right now. And until the federal government cleans that up, it's up to interpretation not only of different states, but sometimes even within local localities of within a state, a city, or a county. And I was on a call last week with some legal counsel just talking through some different scenarios, and it was shocking how differently and how different governments are taking a look at this. And so I think for the industry to move forward, even though we're starting to see, Southern obviously investing in some distribution of these products. RNDC, I believe, is looking at it as well. We know about Canopy and all that stuff with Constellation. It's probably coming, but it starts with getting it cleaned up at the federal level. And then that'll, I think, open the door to give a little more confidence for people to move forward and invest more time. Because you could be down a path and in one particular area be fine, and all of a sudden, maybe because of an election or something, somebody has a different opinion of it, and then you're in a problem. And then the authenticity of it is also going to be something that we're all going to have to watch, because there's a lot of gray area around that right now.
It's not heavily regulated.
And it's something that is going to have to be cleaned up in order for it to become more mainstream.
Yep. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Oh.
Two-part question, and I know where James stands on it, but I'd be curious for the three of you up there. Are seltzers going to survive on premise? And if so, have you figured out how to sell them yet?
I've taken a big leap into seltzers, but mainly on the draft side. So I think seltzers are super popular because it's like that badge of honor. You want to see the brand in front of you, and there's so many out there right now. So it's hard to pick just one. I've just played with it heavily at Yard House, and what we've done is kind of added a step. So if we pick just one particular flavor, we're doing flavor extensions to it. So if it's a black cherry, then we're doing black cherry raspberry. And we're really kind of like making our own in-house seltzers. And then obviously the trend with the young kids is to bump it up with some booze into it too. So we're taking a little bit of advantage of that and upselling on those opportunities. But we have other concepts, more of our outdoorsy concepts that feels like it's more of a patio type experience with Bahama Breeze. So we're playing in that space a little bit. From what we've seen on the trends, this is supposed to be the year that on-premise takes off with seltzers, so we'll see. I don't know how much we'll focus on it on our luxury side of our brands. It just doesn't feel like it's in the right space necessarily, but certainly with that casual consumer that's coming out for everyday lifestyle, it's something they engage with at home. I think when they come out to our restaurants, they're looking for something a little bit more special and unique, which is why we've taken the step to give them something more when we put it on draft and do other flavors with it.
Yeah, we've been trying different ways to sell it. It doesn't sell well right now, but we've looked at pricing specials. We're trying to figure out what's the best position. Is it happy hour? Is it late night? Is it an everyday offer? And we're looking at different flavors, different brands. So I think we're in a position right now in the early stages of seltzer. We're just going to keep trying things, and the operators have been very responsive to it. So because they know as a personal consumer, they get it. They drink and enjoy seltzers themselves, but also understand it's hard to translate on premise right now. But I think we're in this mode of we're willing to try right now. So I think this would be a really interesting question a year from now. So.
Yeah, I think concept specific, again, pool bars, it makes a lot of sense, grab and go from the front desk or from the coffee shop. It's easy. But then craft seltzers, those that we're doing our own kind of concoctions to or creations to. Highballs, right, is kind of that other version or format. Spritzes, that's here to stay for sure. Again, what can we do that's like more of a craft upper tier version of that?
Can you talk a little bit more about what worked, what didn't work? Were there any particular containers that you liked or didn't like?
Yeah, well, that was what was interesting for our operators was they were so eager to get going, but we didn't have the infrastructure in place to start going right away. So yeah, so we needed to get the right cup. One important thing that I think was a good strategic move for us early on was to match the exact recipe in the restaurant as what we're going to sell to go. Because to try to manage two different amounts of ounces with different ratios of spirits and mix was a nightmare scenario. So we sourced a cup that fit the same volume as our glasses, and then just to kind of blanket everything, we just made the proactive step to make all lids without a straw hole. That means that you cover everything. We had tape seals, and the real challenge for us to get that off the ground was the inventory and the packaging costs. I mean, our off-premise teams are held accountable to the cost and the number of SKUs that they have to use at their disposal for to-go. So it was a lot of bartering about, well, we can drop this kid's cup, we can get rid of this. Let's trade some stuff out to keep the costs under control. And it was a very interesting process. Just working with the suppliers too, their minimums are so large that, you're looking at sitting on a box of cups for over a year in some cases. So I would really encourage all the buyers in the room to, and all the suppliers, pursue this and work on it. But put your infrastructure in place, get your recipes dialed in before you attempt to train it, and then the fun really happens then. Now we've got the system set up. Now we can play around and create these new unique offerings and feature different brands over time. And I think we're on this. We're in the having fun mode now, which is good. So.
Great. Well, thank you all for attending this morning. I want to thank our panelists, please. Yes. We will hang out for a few minutes in case anybody wants to come up and ask any specific questions to any one of them. But the showcase is opening at 9:45, so we'll see you all downstairs. Thank you.